Hello everyone, it is Pal Ponder on Weather coming at you with another video. In this update, I'm going to talk about kind of the overall pattern for the next couple of weeks through the end of November, and also talk about three potential possible East Coast storms between now and the end of the month. So before I do get started, if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel and also share with your friends and family on social media that love weather-related content. All right. So let's get started. So here is the overall record temperatures that happened yesterday. And you can see that there's been, numerous, if not hundreds of records over the last several days with this Arctic outbreak all the way down to the deep south. I know Alabama checked in at 23 degrees. New York City had three separate record cold temperatures. That's incredible for this time of year. Watertown, New York, the daily record was 11 and it hit -7. That's 18 degrees below the record. That is incredible cold that kicked in with this Arctic outbreak, and especially for this early on in November. And even this morning, as the system's kind of moving off, we still experience some record low temperatures off the East Coast. All right, so let's delve right into the overall pattern. Here is the overall setup on the GFS model, and you can see it's kind of winding down. It's what I call reloading for the next system. So not much potentially, going on right now. It has that high pressure showing those record cold temperatures along the East Coast. But if we take it out another frame on Thursday to on Friday, it kind of kicks in this low and it starts to deepen off the East Coast. Right now it's 1,009 millibars, but it swings in more moisture around Florida and into the Carolinas, and this will swing up the East Coast and dig deeper. And now it's down to a 995 millibar coming up on Saturday. And as it's coming up the East Coast, this will pump in pretty high winds. And I'll take it out some more frames, but this actually potentially could get hurricane force winds along the eastern shore coming up next week. And if we take this system at another frame by Monday of next week, this cranks it down to a 986 millibar, and typically about 990 is what you kind of need for a hurricane force storm. And you can see these isobars are tightening up. And so I would not be surprised to get hurricane force winds around Cape Hatteras as this really digs in deep this time next week and start spreading some snow. And then in the Northeast, and if we can take it out another frame, it potentially spreads in snow a lot of the same areas that received snowfall with this last storm in upstate New York, and spread a wintering mix down into the New England states. But yeah, here's some of the wind gusts that potentially could go on next week. And I think even some of these models are kind of underplaying this storm. This first one, it's going to be a lot of moisture to the East Coast, but this is not. And this maxes out around 80. So I would not be surprised, like I said, some hurricane force wind gusts along the Carolina coast, around Cape Hatteras, coming up, Wednesday timeframe of next week. So we'll have to keep an eye on this storm. But if we actually take it out another frame, and this shows that storm, coming up the East Coast, and there's another storm after that. So this is kind of a 1, 2, potentially 3 punch, and has another potential storm spreading more snow along the eastern seaboard coming up potentially Thanksgiving week. And here's the overall pattern that could play out over the next 10 days as far as temperatures. And we stay well below normal to well below normal in 2/3 of the country, in the same areas that have seen the Arctic outbreak. Yes, it's going to modify, but we'll still be having below normal temperatures for the next 10 days through Thanksgiving week. But here's the overall SOI index, and this made a crucial drop about a week ago. This 90-day moving average moved below 8, and that, to me, that typically implies that you could have a little bit of a weak El Nino. This signaled that back in September, and it brought that abundant moisture in October with heavier rains and well above average precipitation for the south and southeast. And it signaled that again last week. So if the same thing happens, this should bring, activate the Pacific jet and bring elevated moisture to the south and southeast and eventually swing up the east coast. And this is the MJO, the Managerial Oscillation. Right now we're in phase 8, but this will swing into phase 1, and you can see what phase 1 looks like. But prime time in winter is phase 2, and we're not even actually in winter, so some of these anomalies will even be a lot colder by January standards. But you can see phase 2, it brings below normal temperatures to the deep south and much of the south and southeast and the east coast, and this swings it all the way through Thanksgiving week. So the question is, does this pattern, back off in the first week in December and maybe potentially the first couple of weeks in December, kind of what I was thinking in some of my winter outlook, because it goes into a warm phase, which is 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the MJO. Or yesterday, the polar vortex is showing signs of a disruption Thanksgiving week, and there's typically about a week lag to that. And so that potentially could filter in more cold Arctic air the first week in December. So that's something I'm actually keeping an eye on. If that's the $1 question right now, is this after 2 weeks, does this pattern go to a warmer phase, or does it back off with the MJO and allow that polar vortex to plunge down into the United States? So that's something I'll be keeping an eye on. And with the elevated SOI index going below -8, it's starting to show in some of the models that it activates that Pacific jet, and this is over the next 10 days, that it'll bring more abundant moisture to the south and southeastern parts of the United States. And I think this will only enhance as we go deeper into November. And here's the latest a Euro model showing that potential system. This is granted 2 weeks out, but this system showing MJO phase 2, SOI index -8, having this system activate the Pacific jet and swinging up the East Coast. This is a prime setup, could be a potential big storm for the Northeast coming up Thanksgiving week. All right, so that's just kind of some of the things I'm looking at. And what does the snowfall look like? Well, obviously it's going to pump in more snow to a lot of the same areas that have actually received snow so far. A lot of the Rockies, well into Montana, Illinois, and I think this is actually even underplayed, because this is through now between the end of November. But if that thing gets cranking, like I think it's going to get cranking for Thanksgiving week, that could potentially be a big storm along the eastern seaboard coming up for Thanksgiving week. So that's kind of my overall thoughts. It might how this thing, what I'm kind of looking at for the next 2 weeks, and how these systems are going to kind of play out. I appreciate you guys watching, and please subscribe to my channel, and definitely tune in for the next video where I protect you before and after the storm.